Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. My name's Nigel. Today we're talking about the brand new 13-inch iPad Pro. Not only do we have a major upgrade to the form factor of this new device, we also have some new display tech on board debuting in this for the first time. Not to mention the all-new M4 Apple chip. Now, we're not gonna go over this hardware with a fine-tooth comb. We're just gonna hit the main points and try to answer the two questions that I think are the most important, which number one is, if you currently own an iPad Pro, which one of them would be worth spending the money to upgrade to this new M4? Beyond that, I'm revisiting a question that I find myself asking periodically over the years, which is, can I, as a primary Mac laptop user, could I possibly replace that with this lighter and even more portable iPad Pro? Stick with me. We're going to try to get all these questions answered by the end of the video. Let's get into it. Now, first up on the list, let's do a very quick unboxing experience. Get this very tightly fitted lid unsuctioned from the box, and here we are greeted for the first time with our new iPad Pro. Now, lifting it out of the box and getting it into your hand for the first time is like no other experience I've had with any Apple device. You guys, this thing is incredibly thin. I mean, I cannot overstate just how insane this new form factor is. Now, moving beyond the tablet, we have this small packet of literature that most of you are familiar with. Beyond that, we have our power brick, and you get a black braided cable, which I gotta give props to Apple for the quality of these cables they've been including recently. They are the easiest cables that I've ever had to untangle, and believe me, with two little kids, everything is spaghetti. Okay, now a moment of truth. Let's get this thing fired up for the first time. Here we are greeted with the Apple logo, which actually is a great way of demonstrating the contrast ratio on this panel. It looks incredible. This bright white pop from the Apple logo in the middle of the screen. There's no light bleeding from the logo into the surrounding pixels. That looks extremely sharp. This is a great panel and an amazing start. Now, I had to fast forward a little bit here to get past the setup boring stuff. But here we are looking at the home screen for the first time now. Apple does, of course, always choose great background imagery to display really vibrant and colorful image, very sharp, perfect way of demonstrating the color saturation and also just the brightness of this screen. It looks crazy good. Now, more on the brightness of this, we have 1,000 nits of typical brightness on this display, all the way up to 1,600 in certain scenarios, such as really high peak brightness needs during an HDR film. Now, just to be clear, that's really impressive. This is probably going to be usable outside more so than ever before. Let's bring an iPhone 15 Pro next to this, which has similar specs, with the exception of it's capable of achieving all the way up to 2,000 nits peak brightness in direct sunlight. I knew someone was sneaking in behind me. I can always sense when there's evil lurking. Hello.
Hi. When are we gonna have dinner?
I will start cooking. You gonna do some jumping jacks? I love you. See ya. Okay. Get out of here! Anyway, what were we talking about? Brightness. Now, here we are testing these devices outside. I just wanted to use the iPhone as a comparative tool. Most of you have probably seen how bright they're capable of getting on a normal bright day. The camera's really not going to be able to pick this up, so use your imagination. You know what an iPhone looks like, and now being able to see them side by side, you can see that actually screen size is the bigger advantage here. Although it may have 1,000 less nits of that sustained peak brightness, the bottom line is it is really good news for those of you who would like to bring your tablet outside to get some work done. The screen is extremely bright. The anti-reflective coating technology on this device, much less reflection on the screen. And there you have it. The dual layer OLED is an absolute win for those of you who want to get some work done outside. Another welcome addition is the landscape camera on the front. This is so much better when you're making FaceTime calls, especially for the performance of center stage. And we've already seen the inclusion of this on the new iPad. The camera performance is great. Now, on the other hand, the rear-facing camera, of course, it works great, but here's the thing. I just don't care how good it works. I'm never gonna use it. Most of the time, I'm trying to be inconspicuous, you know, filming my kids do something silly. The minute they know I'm recording them, they stop, right? How would that work if I was wandering around with a giant tablet in my hand? It just wouldn't work out very well. Okay, moving on to the audio. I feel like 90% of you are more than likely popping in headphones of your choice and enjoying it that way. However, in that circumstance where you do need the internal speakers, I will say you will be surprised, and it's capable of putting a lot of sound out of such a thin profile. It's pretty impressive. The fact that it's capable of Dolby Atmos at all is still pretty magical to me. Now, this is very dependent on the position of the tablet as you're watching. It can go from being magical all the way down to unnoticeable. The reality is, depending on your comfortable position, how you like to view the tablet, you may or may not be able to experience this as well as someone else may. Now, what about the M4 chip? This is an interesting one, and I think that it will have varying degrees of importance depending on what generation your current hardware is. Of course, the M4 is going to be a stronger performer than its predecessors, but the importance of that is really going to rely on what your current device is. And really quick, I'd like to ask that if at some point during this video you find yourself being entertained or gaining some useful knowledge, hit that thumbs up button and let's get this video spread out to a wider audience. If you see yourself coming back to my content in the future, consider subscribing. I'd love to have you. Now, on with the video. Now that we have the basics out of the way, what are some of the conclusions we're able to draw based on what we know now about these core elements of the new iPad Pro? Well, number one, we can say with absolute certainty that this form factor is amazing. This impossibly thin design, when considering the capability of this device, is second to none. Another thing we can say with absolute certainty is this new OLED tech that Apple's come up with, this dual layer panel, is something to behold. The saturation of color, the detail that's able to be produced in those deep dark blacks is second to none. The brightness, which now makes this a perfectly usable OLED panel outside on a bright day, which gives you more versatility. And just to go into a bit more detail about the new Apple Pencil Pro, for those of you out there that rely on this device on a regular basis, you have some additional functionality that should help navigate you through the UI of your program a little bit easier with a lot less touch input, a lot less docking of the pencil, hopefully creating a much more streamlined experience for those of you, once again, that really do enjoy or are required to use this device frequently. And let us not forget the newly redesigned Magic Keyboard. It kept the same price, unfortunately, $350 for this new variant. It does in fact have a larger trackpad, which is a great addition. It also has the widely requested function row of keys, making it just more usable than the previous version. My problem with the Magic Keyboard will always be, especially with this new M4 iPad Pro, it takes away from me that magic of interacting with this thin and lightweight device. As soon as you add the keyboard to it, it completely destroys that magical feeling of holding this extremely thin and lightweight tablet. To me, it's a peripheral that may need to be connected from time to time, but to pay $350 to have the ability to just type periodically, and of course, yes, it's providing protection, I just don't think this keyboard cover is providing anywhere near the value that it would need to justify such a purchase. I honestly think that in this case, you're almost paying to ruin the experience. It's only stable when sitting on something like a table or a desk. When on your lap, it's just totally wonky and all over the place. Out of balance, it's tipping over, it's falling off your lap. Not good, not comfortable, not a fan. Which brings me to my final thought. Which generation of iPad Pro would a person have to be holding currently to justify this extreme cost for this upgrade to the new M4? And the bottom line is, I think that anybody holding an iPad Pro prior to the M1 version could safely spend the money and would realize a very large upgrade in all facets of this new device. All of those things would genuinely feel like a major upgrade. Now, when talking about something such as the M1 iPad, that gap starts to disappear pretty quickly as you move to the N1, and then all but vanishes on the M2, in my opinion. You still have really good screen quality on both of those tablets. Those processors are capable of tackling just about anything you could throw at them. Even the M1 still breezes breezes through most tasks. Which brings me to my second question, which is, can I replace my go-to MacBook Air with this iPad Pro Magic Keyboard and pencil combination? The unfortunate answer to this is no, I don't think we're quite there yet, you guys, and let me tell you why. A huge piece of it falls back on the Magic Keyboard. I'm just not a fan of it for all the reasons I listed, and I just can't stress to you enough. It's just a miserable experience trying to do my kind of work with that setup. It would only be acceptable for me if it were a very rare use case, but then again, why would you spend $350 on this case if you weren't going to be using it regularly? And then once again, that just leads me right back to why would I spend $1,800 on this combination if I would be better off just buying a MacBook? You see what I'm saying? There's just no way to, number one, replace a MacBook with a tablet. And if you're someone who uses a tablet for tablet things, there's no reason to have a keyboard for it, especially one that costs this much money. So $1,200 for the greatest tablet I think ever created. If you have something prior to M1, absolutely go for it. You're going to love it. Anything beyond that, it's a harder proposition. And for those of you who might be considering moving from a MacBook over to a tablet, there's a good chance you might really end up regretting that move. Those are my final thoughts. This new iPad Pro is an amazing tablet. It feels incredible to hold. It feels great to interact with. But I still feel like it is meant for a very specific group of people, and that is not someone who's a primary laptop user. It's an amazing secondary device if you can afford to have one of those by your side. But otherwise, for most of us who have to make a choice between one or the other, I would stick with whatever it is you're currently doing. You're a tablet person, go ahead and upgrade to this one if you still have an older generation. Otherwise, if you're someone like me who's just always tempted to see if you can make it work, I would say it's still not that time. And at this point, I just honestly don't know if it ever will be. Just my humble opinion. At the end of the day, you guys, there are so many different use cases. And if I didn't answer your specific questions, please drop a comment down below. Ask me anything. I'll be happy to answer it for you. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here. I want to thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope more than anything you were able to get some value out of it. Thanks again, and I hope you have an amazing night wherever you may be.